My name's Shuranjeet Singh, and I am one of the team who are trying to lead and take forward the neighbourhood planning process in Soho and Handsworth. Firstly, massive thank you to BCM for inviting us and and to BCC for the ongoing support in this process as well. I was going to give a bit of a background to myself and kind of explain some of the motivations which got me interested in neighbourhood planning. Give a bit of an overview of where we are so far and also some of our next steps moving forward. So I'm born, raised, and currently reside in Handsworth. But when I was 18, I left the city to go and study at university. I was away for 3 years for my undergrad, a couple of years for a master's, and then another year kind of working and doing some other bits. And living in a few different cities, both in the UK and abroad, some of the things that I recognized most were the potential for areas that were similar to where I grew up in different parts of the world, and how much amazing things can happen in a space that, has amazing people pushing behind it, investing in it, and building their futures there. So that's when I took the decision. I was like, actually, all my school friends, everyone's moving to London. And for me, it was about actually, how can I serve best locally here in Handsworth? How can I build on where my roots are to actually build a better future, not only for people in the present, but also for generations that will come afterwards. I was recognizing a lot of people locally, their families, children, grandchildren were all moving out of the area. And I wanted to at least give people the option of actually building their roots locally, being able to serve. So coming back to Handsworth in May 2021, got involved with a few different community initiatives. So I was supporting a governor at a local primary school. I'm a volunteer. I run a mental health service for a local charity. And then also I got involved with housing work to support residents, communities, and tenants with some of the housing issues that we had going on locally. A lot of these housing challenges around kind of not very great providers when it came to kind of HMOs and exempt supported accommodation. And so started supporting different stakeholders around that. But quite quickly, I realized that a lot of the work was really reactive. So for example, someone might say, oh, we're having an issue with a particular house, we're having an issue with this, and we'd escalate it. And essentially it just ended up being kind of signposting service really into the local authority. And so I thought, okay, this is interesting. How can we actually think a bit more upstream? How can we be a bit more proactive around challenging and resolving some of these local issues? And so that's when I started looking to the neighborhood planning. And I remember seeing it on the locality website and kind of looking at a couple of little videos and thinking, this is really interesting. I wonder if my local area has a neighborhood plan. And I looked into it and there wasn't a neighborhood plan. And so I started doing some digging to find out if there were people who were interested in taking this forward, what's happened so far. And I found my other local neighborhood forum, which is a planning forum, connected with them. They had no idea what neighborhood planning was. And I was like, okay, well, I think this is enough reason to start asking questions about whether this would be helpful. So I started engaging with Birmingham City Council first and foremost. I remember connecting with one of the officers locally, who then put me in touch with Claire. And since then, I've been bugging Claire constantly for the last 7 or 8 months, trying to kind of read, understand, and get to grips with the whole neighborhood planning process. So the point that we've been doing for the last 7 months or so is around connecting and kind of speaking with local community stakeholders to understand, number one, whether they think a neighborhood plan would be useful or helpful in the area, and number two, what would the area boundary, the geographic boundary of that neighborhood planning area be. So we've spoken to a number of different stakeholders across faith communities, police, schools, housing, healthcare, all within this kind of locality. And we had a resounding yes that a neighborhood plan would be a good idea. And we were slowly getting a better idea for what that area could potentially be. And so over the last couple of months, we've then held 2 community consultation events. We had one that was that was in a community center. It was more like, people have to come out of their way to get there because, if we're sending out leaflets and we're sending out flyers and all that kind of thing, Someone must have to look at that and say, yes, I'm going to go out of my way on my Saturday to go to this community centre to sit there and connect on this topic. So that was great. But what I'd like to say is that was probably the people who already have the confidence of getting involved with these types of discussions anyway. And so that was great. That was a really important part of it. So we had that consultation session. And then last week we had another consultation session, which was actually outside Handsworth Library. So what we did, we had we had one of the local businesses providing free tea. We had fruits. This was the first day of Ramadan. So we also had dates for people who were going to break their fast in the evening. And essentially we'd start having those kind of local planning conversations with people over a cup of tea. And again, I'd say 90% at least were people who wouldn't come to, an event they might see on a flyer, have to go out of their way to do. So that's been going really well. Alongside that, we have received some kind of pre-designation support from locality. So we had support in applying for that and being able to use that to its best potential. And essentially at the moment, we are at a phase where we're working with Birmingham City Council and also planning consultants to be able to identify what the kind of full proposed boundary is. And then we're going to go back and do a number of consultations, preparing for the pre-designation application to then allow the Neighbourhood Planning Forum to start. And then the work of the Neighbourhood Planning Forum would commence and, kind of just focusing on things like the neighbourhood plan. So just a kind of really quick roundup from my side, I'd say it's been a really interesting process. I've learned a lot in this process. I have, found myself going down neighborhood planning rabbit holes online and just kind of really digging into things. It's definitely it's a long-term process. It's something that requires ongoing effort over a longer period of time. And it's one that, requires you to really be connected with where you are. So very much looking forward to seeing how things develop from here on. But it's been a really enlightening experience so far. And, having been able to connect with other people in the city who are doing similar work is an absolutely key part of it. So looking forward to, getting to know anyone else who is wanting to do this journey.